The NHL just screwed the Winnipeg Jets as they fall in overtime to the Las Vegas Golden Knights by a score of 3-2. And this was a game the Jets should have won. They played interesting all the way through, and then in the third period, they really stepped it up, and the referees took it away from them, giving the Vegas Golden Knights a 5-on-3. And one of those calls, which we're going to be discussing in this video, was a phantom call. We're going to break that down, discuss what it means going forward, as well as just discuss how the game played out. The Jets could have played better. They should have played better. There's a lot to go over today, but before we get into it, folks, we are proud to announce that this video is brought to you by Rentals.ca, who are proud supporters of Team Canada. And while they've been supporting our national team defend their home court in international competition, they've also been helping thousands of Canadians find their home floor all across the country. And it doesn't matter what city you are in, whether you're in Toronto, whether you're in Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary, Halifax, it does not matter. Winnipeg, Mississauga, Edmonton, Victoria, St. John's, it doesn't matter where you are from coast to coast. Rentals.ca has a ton of options to find the perfect place and price for you.
Their website is clean and easy to use, and you can pinpoint exactly on the map where you want to move, finding all the options in your area. Find your home court with Rentals.ca.
Yeah, check out the website in the pinned comment or the description down below. And shout out to Rentals.ca for supporting our channel, supporting Team Canada, and supporting you guys for finding the best rentals across the country. So thank you guys again. And thank you to Rentals.ca for sponsoring this video. We obviously just watched the Jets game, and disappointing loss. And that's how the overtime goes. You know, you play better. They had the possession for 90% of overtime. The Knights get the puck and they score. But let's just dive into the box score here. We're going to dive into the calls and things like that. But I want to start by giving a shout out to Nikita Chibrikov. Scored a big goal. And for a guy, a young prospect, he is really fighting to stay with this team. There's a lot of storylines in this game, whether it's Hayden Fleury's giveaway at the end, whether it's Ville Heinola really not playing much, especially in the third period there. Darius, it was a wild game and one that I think they should have won, and also an unbelievable goal by Josh Morrissey, which we'll get into as well. But overall, just it's a tough loss. At least you get 1 point out of it, but they should have absolutely gotten two. And the rest giving the Knights a 5-on-3 with 2 minutes or less than 2 minutes left in the game is something that should rarely happen. I mean, if it was a trip, it was a trip, and it didn't look like a trip to me. It looked more like a dive.
Yeah, and in terms of storylines, how about Connor Hellebuck in this game as well? It looked like the Jets were well on their way to win this game. It looks like they were going to win this game. Then obviously the 5-on-3, and Vegas gets on the board to tie the game. But Connor Hellebuck was brilliant in this game. But I want to take it back to the first period, and obviously Chibrikov. He is still remaining a goal a game in the NHL. 3 games in the NHL, 3 goals. And you know what? He doesn't necessarily make the play happen, but it's a good hard shot off the pads, and he picks up the rebound. He's going to the net, so he's creating his own, luck for himself at this point. So glad to see him get back on the board again tonight, because he's another guy, we talked about when they called him up, what can he add to this lineup? I think it was more about, getting Brad Lambert, some more confidence down in the AHL more than, who's coming back up the other way. But coming back up the other way is a guy who scored 2 goals in 2 games now. And, when in a tight game like this, obviously we'll get to Morrissey's goal in a second. In a tight game like this is the type of goal that you need, just driving the net, putting in the rebound. And it looked like the Jets were going to win 2-1 for a little while there. But again, Chibrikov has looked pretty good since he's been called up.
He's making a very strong case to stay up again. Brad Lambert, he was struggling to start the season in the AHL, comes up after having a hot start there with the Manitoba Moose, and he played okay in his 1 game, but nothing to write home about. Then you get Nikita Chibrikov coming up, scoring 2 goals in 2 games. He played 11 minutes tonight, and he looked very good, and NHL career goals per game leader, of course. But you can see this here as well. Let's dive into Josh Morrissey a little bit. One of the nicest shots you can see here from Crowder Brooks. No word of a lie, this very well may be the nicest goal that Josh Morrissey has scored for the Jets. He restores Winnipeg's 1-goal lead midway through the third, an absolute rocket of a shot. And if you didn't see it, again, it was in the intro there, but an unbelievable goal from Josh Morrissey. And he's having an interesting season. You look at his stats, some we haven't really talked about a ton here. 27 points in 30 games, quietly putting up an absolute masterclass of a season. He's not scoring as much as we're used to from Josh Morrissey, but he's been playing very, very well. And again, the goal scoring hasn't really been there. He's now up to 3 goals on the season. So Darius, an absolute beautiful shot, beauty of a shot by him. And it's why this loss was so much more annoying, because that was such a nice goal. The refs come out to dictate the game a little bit, but we'll get into that in a little bit here. Great goal from Josh Morrissey, and he's having a very solid season, even if he's not scoring as many goals as we're used to.
Yeah, not as much as we're used to, but at the same time, he's almost a point-a-game player still, so he's continuing to do his thing. And one thing that I think a lot of people are overlooking, or I just don't hear too much about it in the mainstream media, is how much he plays in a game. He's averaging almost 25 minutes a game so far this season. So he's doing his thing for the Winnipeg Jets, and he's a big part of this team. He always has been, and he's continuing to do that for this Jets team, obviously being the number one defenseman for them. So logging a lot of minutes and continuing to do his thing offensively. I think he's been pretty good defensively as well, and a big reason as to why the Jets are off to a hot start overall to this season. Obviously, they had a few games where they fell off a little bit there, but they seem to be back and playing better. And again, tonight, we're going to get into it, but I don't know if it was necessarily all their fault. They probably deserved a better fate, and I think that Connor Hellebuyck specifically probably deserved a better fate.
Yeah, you saw how Matt Hellebuyck was after the goal in overtime when a pretty bad turnover by Hayden Fleury. Obviously, it was a bad line switch. They couldn't touch the puck, so it would have been too many men in the ice. A lot of things were going on. But before that, oh boy, now Dylan DeMello was called for tripping. So Gabe Vilardi was called for a trip. It was the correct call. Gabe Vilardi did trip the night there. The Dylan DeMello one, I mean, let me know in the comments if you thought it was a trip. From every angle we saw, it looked like it was more of a dive than anything. Dylan DeMello was pissed. The Winnipeg Jets fans were really mad. Ref, you suck chants were blaring from the Jets faithful. We saw Adam Lowry after the overtime goal by the Knights get really mad and say some, choice words, things we can't say or we're not going to say on this channel. He was mad. Everybody was mad, and I think the announcer made a good point. The announcer agreed that it was a flop and all these things, or a dive, I guess you call it. But you cannot call unless it's the most obvious. You better be sure about the penalty. If it's a 5-on-4 already, of course, they're already on the power play. The Vegas Golden Knights, it is. But you can't decide. Like a 5-on-3 is almost as good as deciding that game, at least getting them back into the game. You have to be sure. And I don't even think the ref had a great angle on it. He was in front of Dylan DeMello, and Dylan DeMello kind of just, used his body, and they called it tripping. It wasn't really the stick. So I don't know. It was a bad call, in my opinion, at least. And maybe there's other angles that we'll see, but you better be sure as hell that was the right call. And I don't think the ref was there, and he got an earful from every single person: Scott Arniel, Adam Lowry, and of course Dylan DeMello, who was still in shock after they lost the game because of the call.
And Dylan DeMello is a pretty responsible player and obviously a really good defensive defenseman, right? So for him to take a penalty like this is pretty shocking in itself. But say what you want about the call, right? Everything we know about game management from the officials in the NHL goes against what happened here, right? Because obviously they don't call it like it is all the time. There's a lot of game management going on. So you would think, in the final 2 minutes, especially with the Jets down already 5-4 or 5-on-4, that, or the penalty kill, whatever you want to call it, that you would think they would have to be something super obvious to call to put them down 5-on-3 in a game where they're up 2-1. So it was a little shocking to me, everything that we know about game management, for something like that to happen. So a little disappointing. I think Jets fans are upset. Obviously, Connor Hellebuyck, feel for him. He put in a really good performance tonight. Like you mentioned, Adam Lowry going out the referee a little bit after the game when Ivan Barbashev scored the overtime winner. So, that's a tough way to lose this game, because it looks like they were on their way to win this game off the back of Connor Hellebuyck. So I keep bringing it up, but he was fantastic tonight. So it's unfortunate, right? But that's just the way it goes sometimes, and you're going to have to bounce back here. And I think that everything we know about the Jets this season alludes to the fact that they will do that.
I'd be very mad if I was Connor Hellebuyck. One of the goals on a 5-on-3, one of them is on a 3-on-3, and neither of them are really his fault. And the goals against average and save percentage doesn't really reflect that, but I'm sure he doesn't care about that. He cares about the win. And Hayden Fleury with the pretty bad turnover there at the end. You can't really make that pass in overtime. That being said, the line change was also terrible. And I do want to give Hayden Fleury some credit. In the, after they scored on the 5-on-3, there was still a minute and a half penalty to kill, and Hayden Fleury played some great defense and situational. He kept diving to cut off the pass across crease. So it was a very interesting thing. But at the end of the day, bad pass by Hayden Fleury. But let me know down below. Let us know down below what your thoughts are on all this. It was a game I think the refs stole from the Jets and one that the Jets should win. But we can at least remain happy that the Jets were able to get 1 point out of it. But thank you guys for watching. See you later.